Hello everyone, and welcome to this video tutorial on how to install OpenJournal Systems, or OJS, on a Debian-based server. And of course, OJS is an open source system for managing and publishing your own scholarly journals. I've installed this a couple of times. The very first time it was relatively easy, however, I did hit a few roadblocks, and I think this gives a really good opportunity to show everyone how I go about troubleshooting when I'm trying to install a system like this and things just don't quite work the way they're supposed to. So if you've attempted to install this and you're getting a white screen when you try to look at the web admin module or the web installer, you've come to the right place. I'll show you how to get around that, how to figure out what's going on, and then we'll fix it. In other videos, I've kind of done the troubleshooting beforehand and don't really go into detail, but this provides a really good example on how to go about troubleshooting problematic installations. So we'll start by heading over to openjournalsystems.com, and here you can find out all sorts of information about the company and the software, pricing, hosting options, that sort of thing. Of course, we're going to use the Community Edition. So what we want to do is head to the OJS Knowledge Center. You'll see that there is the OJS 3.x user guide. Let's go ahead and click that. And so there's a lot of information here. I encourage you to go ahead and read through it. We're not going to do that here. What we're interested in is the installation and upgrade section of this manual. So I'm going to click that. And we can get an overview of the system, hosted solutions, download system requirements. That's the first thing I want to check out here is what are the system requirements for this. So let's go ahead and click that. And so we get the information that we need here. It's your basic LAMP stack. So the usual suspects here. We've got Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. Those are all the things we're going to need to put on our server. So let's go ahead and do that. Of course, you're going to need access to a Linux server. That is one thing I won't cover in this tutorial. There are plenty of videos on YouTube that will show you how to install Debian 10 on a VirtualBox hypervisor. So you can search those out. At some point, I should really do a video that shows my own setup, how I go about setting up VirtualBox and installing servers onto it. But for the purposes of this video, let's just stick to the task at hand. So I already have a Linux system, and I have that. I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to go ahead and open my terminal. Bring that over here. I feel like that should be larger. Oh, sorry about this. I just want to make it bigger. Okay. So whenever I test things out, I like to use VirtualBox, and you'll see that here in my VirtualBox, I have all sorts of virtual machines. Right now I have two things running. One is the OJS tutorial. That is the server that I will be SSHing into. I don't have a graphical user interface on this server, so I'm kind of stuck with the VirtualBox terminal, and I don't like it. There are many limitations to using this. So what I like to do is SSH into it in an environment where I do have a graphical user face installed. So I do that with my Debian dev machine, and I have that up and running. So that's what this is right here. And you'll see it's the jkellogg dev. So what I'm going to do is SSH into my virtual server that I want to install this on, and I will do that by running ssh jkellogg, which is my username on that server, at 10.3.20.147. And of course, I got this IP address in the VirtualBox machine. I just ran the IP address command, and you'll see that there's inet 10.3.20.147. That's how I got my IP address. So I'm going to run the ssh jkellogg at 10.3.20.147. And yes, I do want to connect. And it's asking for my password on that server. So I'm just going to put that in. And then you'll see now we're in the OJS tutorial host, whereas before we were in the jKellogg host. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clear this screen and start with a blank slate. We already have Linux installed, so that portion is done. And what I'm going to do is just run through quickly installing Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So the very first thing that you should always do whenever you're doing server work, sudo apt update and put in your password. I have one package that can be upgraded. I'm just going to do that quickly. Sudo apt upgrade. Yes. Okay, good thing I ran that. It looks like there were some kernel updates that needed to happen. Going to go ahead and hit clear again. And now we'll start installing our software dependencies. So this is a pretty quick and easy thing. Sudo apt install Apache 2 and enter, and Y for yes. Okay, so Apache was installed. Let's install MySQL next. And actually, I'm going to use MariaDB. That is the default for Debian-based servers anyhow. You can also install MySQL, but in the spirit of open source, kind of sticking to less proprietary things, I'm going to use MariaDB. It shouldn't cause problems. They're essentially the same thing. I guess over the course of 2 years, I've run into a couple of problems, but they were easy to fix. It was just a matter of running a different command. We don't have to worry about that though, because this is a very basic database that we need. We're not doing big intricate things. So MariaDB should suit your purposes just fine. You can install that with sudo apt install MariaDB dash server and Y for yes. Okay, so that was the basic install. If you are setting this up in a production environment, I would highly recommend that you secure your installation, and you can do that with a MySQL command, or let's see, you can do that with sudo mysql underscore secure underscore installation. If you run that, you'll be prompted to follow through the steps. If you encounter anything that is confusing to you, I suspect you can find answers doing a Google search, or maybe there's a YouTube video that goes over that. My experience has been this is a pretty straightforward installation. So really the main thing here is it sets a password for your MySQL or MariaDB root user. So that's pretty important if it's a production environment. This isn't. I want to keep things simple. I'm not going to bother with that. So what I'm going to do next is install PHP. So we can do that these days in Debian 10 with sudo apt install PHP. Oops. Now in the past I've had to enter, like PHP 5 or PHP 7.3 or something like that. Now I think they just do PHP will get the most current supported version of PHP. So if this doesn't work, go ahead and do a Google search to figure out why. It would probably be because you're using a different Linux distribution or you're using an older version of Debian. It'll just take a little bit of investigating. You could also run sudo apt search PHP, but you're going to get a very long list of packages that have PHP in them. Okay, so I'm going to do sudo apt install PHP, enter, and Y for yes. Okay, so now that has installed, and I guess before I proceed, actually let's just go back here to our web browser, and I'm going to open a new tab. I'm going to put in my IP address so that I can see if the default Apache page is working. 147, enter, and yes, everything is good so far. All right, let's go back to the OJS website. So we've installed PHP. It is Debian 10, so we're getting version 7, actually 7.3 I think it is. MySQL, we have the most recent version of that, or MariaDB. Same with Apache, and we have our operating system. Okay, so we cover our server requirements. Now what we need to do is, you could check out the recommended configuration. I don't want to go over this because I want to kind of do this in a quick way, but it's worth looking at this. So you can go ahead and do that, do some Google searches to figure out how you would go ahead and do this sort of thing. Some of these things we're going to be doing anyhow as we go through the setup. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go to this installation page. And I like this little disclaimer here. Important, all servers are different, and the installation process in your case may be different than what follows. Well, that's probably going to be the case. These are very bare bones instructions, and we will encounter some problems. And like I said, we're gonna go through the process of fixing that, of troubleshooting the problems that we encounter. So the very first thing within the install process is to extract the OJS archive to the desired location in your web documents directory. We can do that by going to this download link here. I'm going to right click it and open it in a new tab because I'm going to want to come back here. So I'm going to open this new tab. Latest version can be downloaded at the download center. I'll click on that. And we have the last 4 versions available to us. I suspect there's probably an archive somewhere too, but we want the most recent version. So I'm going to go with this one here, 3.3, and you can click to download. I'm just going to right click on this, and I'm going to copy link address. And then this way I can just do everything in the terminal rather than messing around with downloads. Okay, let's go back to our instructions, and we are here on step 1. I'm going to minimize this, and so Apache's default web directory can be found in the following path, and I'm going to get there using the cd change directories /var/www/html. And if I go ahead and list the contents with the ls command, you'll see that right now we have the index.html, and that's what's driving this page here. We don't really want that, so I'm just going to get rid of it now with sudo rm for remove, and then index.html. We'll go ahead and hit enter, ls, and it's gone. Okay, now we're ready to extract our files into this web directory, into the HTML directory. So whenever anybody goes to a website that's powered by Apache and they're using the default configurations, Apache points them to this directory. I like to use wget to download these sorts of things. Let's just make sure it's installed. So we'll do sudo apt install wget. And I already have it installed, but we ran that command just in case you don't. Now we can use wget to download all of the files we need for the system, and we can do that with sudo wget, and then I'm going to right click and paste, and I will hit enter. Okay, looks like we got the tar file, so we can just run ls. All right, great. So the next thing we're going to do is extract that tar file here, and you can do that with the tar command. Sudo tar dash, okay, let's see if I can remember here. X for extract, V for verbose, Z for tar.gz files, and F for files. And I can just type the letter O and then hit tab to autocomplete that so I don't have to type it all out. And then I hit enter. Okay, so we have extracted everything from that tar archive. Let's go ahead and do ls. You'll see that we have our new directory here. Let's just take a peek in there, cd into oj, and then go ahead and hit tab to autocomplete. And we will ls-la. Now this time I'm using LA so that we can see any hidden files. This A flag here is going to show us any .htaccess files or any other kind of hidden file that's in that directory. I'm going to hit enter, and going down through the list I don't see any, And the reason why this is important is because we're about to move all of the contents in this directory back a directory. And the reason for that is we don't want to have this OJS-3 dot so on and so forth in our URL. So what I'm going to do is move all those. However, when you use the move command, you aren't necessarily going to get the dot files, the hidden files. In this case, it's not a big deal, so we don't have to worry about it. I'm just going to go back one directory. And then from here, I can use sudo mv, which means move, and then the files I want to move. So just to be safe, I'm going to do the full path, var www HTML, OJS, and then actually let's open this up a little. Then we want the directory that we're going to move all these files to. Oh, actually we need to do a slash and then an asterisk. And so this is a wildcard just saying grab everything within that directory and move it to HTML, which we haven't done yet. So I'm going to do the var www HTML. So this is the directory I want to send all those files to. I'll go ahead and hit enter and then ls, and you'll see that I have all of the files I need now on my web directory. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup here, so I want to sudo remove OJS.tar. I don't need that anymore. I'm also going to get rid of that directory. Sudo rm-r for recursive, which you must use in order to delete a directory, which I'm doing now, the OJS-3, so on and so on. Enter ls, you'll see that both of those are now gone. Okay, let's go back to our instructions and open this up. All right. So the next thing we want to do is make the following files and directories and their contents writable, i.e. by changing the owner or permissions with chown or chmod. So in our case, what I'm going to do is set this up so that we change the owner to the Apache user. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm just going to clear this and let's just quickly take a look at the files we're going to need. Okay, so these are all of the things that we need to have writable: config, inc, php, public, cache, and everything under the cache directory. All right, so one file and a bunch of directories. So let's go ahead and just list the contents of the directory and identify everything that we're supposed to be looking at. Whoops, what happened here? Go back. Installation process. Okay, so we have config inc php, that's right there. We have public, that is right here. We have the cache directory. I'm just going to do the full cache directory rather than just individual components of it. And let's do this with sudo chown and then www-data, which is the Apache user. I'm just going to keep root as the group, so I'm not entering anything at all there. And we'll go ahead and put in config inc php. We will also put in, actually, what we want to do here is -r for recursive so that it goes through everything. So we've got that. We need the public directory. We need the cache directory, and then that should cover everything. All right, let's see here. I'll go ahead and hit enter. -r is not what we want. It is -R. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure that happened. LSLA. And you'll see that cache now has the Apache user, config has the Apache user, and public has the Apache user. Let's just quickly look in cache to make sure everything worked the way I intended it to. So cd change directory into cache. Let's list everything. whoops, ls-la, and yes. So Apache now has write permissions for everything that they've identified as being something that they should have write permissions for. All right, now let's go back a directory, and I'm going to clear the screen again. And the next thing they're telling us is to create a directory to store uploaded files and make sure this directory is writable. It is strongly recommended that this directory be placed in a non-web accessible location to ensure a secure environment or otherwise protect from direct access. So essentially what they're saying here is don't put your new files directory anywhere from the HTML directory on, because Apache always starts here. Anything behind that directory is going to be inaccessible by the web. So what I'm going to do is just cd dot dot dash, which means change directories back one. So this will take us back to www. And then here I'm going to create the directory called files. So sudo mkdir, I'm going to call it files, and I'm going to hit enter. lsla, it is owned by root. We want to make sure this is writable, and I'm not sure the best approach here. I'm not 100% sure if changing this directory to have ownership from the www-data user will work. And because this is a tutorial and I don't want to waste people's time, you can go ahead and try that if you want. But what I'm going to do is just use sudo chmod -r, which probably isn't necessary, but that's okay. Better safe than sorry. I can give it 777 permissions. You know, the more I think of this, the less excited I am about it. So actually, I think I'm going to do chown the www-data user on the files directory. And if this doesn't work, we can come back and fix it. But I'm just going to go ahead and try this because this is going to be a better approach than just giving full access, write access to all users on the system. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. lsla, and okay, now www-data has write permissions on this files directory. Okay, so at this point, we can go to our website. They're telling us we can open a web browser and go to our domain. In my case, I'm just using my IP address. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And the page is unable to handle the request. I'm getting a 500 error. What do we do? Well, the first thing I usually do when I encounter something like this is I do Control-Shift-I, and that gives us the developer tools, and I always like to look in the console to see if I get any information. In this case, we're getting nothing. So what we need to do is check the Apache web logs. I can do that by going back a directory here from in the var directory. So if we go back cd // let's do lsla, you'll see that there are a number of things here, but what we're after is this log directory. So I'm going to cd into log ls-la, and you'll see that in here we have an Apache 2 directory. And I'm going to cd into that. Oops, cd var log Apache 2. And permission is denied, so I'm going to do sudo -i to go into root, and then cd var log Apache 2 ls, and I'm after this error log here, and I'm going to view that with the less command. So I'm going to do less. We don't have to do sudo now because we've gone into root user. We'll do less error.log, and so we get a bunch of files here. Okay, so we're seeing the fatal errors. We have a fatal error uncaught called to undefined function XML parser create. Okay, so that's a pretty good indication that PHP does not have the XML extension, and we're going to need to add that. So what we shall do is if I hit the Q button, we'll quit out of that, and I'm going to do sudo apt. Oops, we don't need to do sudo because we're in root, so we can do apt install php-xml. And of course, I'm familiar with this stuff. It was pretty obvious to me that it was an XML extension. However, if you copy and paste the error and do a Google search, you're likely going to get the answer as to what's going on there, and you will be told to install this PHP extension. So I'm going to hit enter. Y for yes. And let's see, anytime you do anything with PHP, you need to restart the Apache server. So you can do that. We're already in root, so we don't need to use sudo. I'm going to use the systemd command. So systemctl restart Apache 2. So this will restart the Apache 2 service. Okay, now we can go back and refresh, and now we're just getting a blank screen. So again, I would use the Control-Shift-I, but I know that I'm not going to get the answer there, so I'm not going to bother. What I am going to do is check the Apache log again, so go ahead and clear this. I'm going to hit the up arrow so that I get the old less error.log. And less is just a way to view the contents of a file and search it. You can't make edits to it, but you can view it. So it's a handy little command. So less error.log, and let's open this up so we can see it better. And we have another PHP fatal error. So up here was our last one. That was the XML parser. Called to undefined function MB split. Well, I see the MB initials in there, and again, what I would do is, if you are uncertain what that means, I would copy and paste all of this and then just do a Google search. But however, having been through this before, that's very suspiciously looking like the problem is we don't have the MB string extension, PHP extension installed. So I'm going to hit Q to quit, and then we will do apt install php-mb string. I'll go ahead and hit enter, and Y for yes. Okay, and again, we're going to have to restart. So I'm just going to hit the up arrow until I get to the systemctl restart Apache 2. Let's make that a little smaller, and then let's reload this page. And now we get the page that we were expecting. So this is an admin setup, and we'll go through this. One thing I do want to point out really quick before we do that is here under this database driver, you'll see that anything listed in brackets doesn't appear to have the right PHP extension loaded. So this is in brackets. Clearly we're missing something. These are all of the various databases that you can use. I think in our case with MariaDB it ends up being this choice here. But first we need the proper driver for that. So let's do that. We can do that with sudo apt, and actually I don't think we need, we don't need to be in root anymore, so I'm just going to type exit and then clear. And here I'm going to do sudo apt install, what was it, php-mysql, and then I think if you do -yes, you don't have to enter yes. Yeah. Okay, so because of that, we're going to have to run sudo restart, sudo systemctl restart Apache 2. So I can't just use the up arrow because I'm no longer in root. So I've restarted the system. I'm going to have to refresh this page. And now when I look here, you'll see that my SQLi is no longer in brackets. So we'll be able to use that. Okay, let's go through the rest of the setup here. So they're telling us all the recommended system requirements. We've gone through and installed all of that. Supported database systems. We're good with that. Pre-installation steps. So they have a little checklist here. Config. All those things that we made writable right here are working the way they're supposed to. We have our directory to store uploaded files. It must be created and made writable. So we'll do that in the file settings below. And so what I'm going to do here is just put in all of my information. So system admin, we'll just put in a password here. Test at xyz.edu. We'll just put in a fake email. Server currently supports MB string, so we're good there. Whatever your primary location is, you want to set that up. English is what I'm using. You can put in additional locales. Client character set, we should be good with Unicode. And we have a directory for uploads. So please ensure this directory exists as a writable prior to installation. So we created the var www files directory. Hopefully with the way we've configured that, that should be good. The server currently allows a maximum file upload size of 2 megabytes. So you can change that. You can't do it within the system here, but if you go to, what is it, cd etc php, if I go in there, let's just list the contents. Let's change directory to 7.3. List the contents there. Let's go into the Apache 2 directory, list the contents. This is the file right here, the php.ini. You can edit this 2 megabyte size by going to that php.ini file. So I'm just going to use nano because it's an easy text editor to use. Sudo php.ini. I didn't put nano in there. Nano. Okay. Enter. And if you do Control W, you can search. And then I think if I just search upload, you'll see this maximum number of upload max file size right here. You could change this to like 1 gigabyte, for example. And then Control X, and then Y, and then if you go ahead and do the system restart, Apache 2, that'll actually change that number there. I guess, let's see, let's go ahead and reload the site. I'm going to have to redo all of that information, but that's okay. So you'll see now where it's been changed to 1 gigabyte. So that's probably far more than you would need, but you know, if it's a big journal, you're probably going to have to switch that. So I feel like it's important to point that out. Okay, so we've been through this. I'm just going to redo this real quick. System admin, and a password, and a password, and I'm just going to put in my email. No special locale settings for me. Unicode, we have our server. Okay, so now we have to deal with the database, and I'm going to go ahead and select the MySQLi. Host should be localhost. Now here you can do this however you want. I'm just going to call it the username OJS user. I'm going to put in a password here. I'm just going to call it password. And then I don't want the 2 in the database name. Now, this isn't going to create the database for you. We're going to have to do that ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this. And I'm going to go and do sudo Maria DB. We didn't set a root password, so we're all set there. If you did set a root password, you would have to do -u -u root to log in as root, then -p, and then it will ask for your password that you set up for that. We didn't set that up. We didn't run the secure version of MySQL. So in my case, rather than enter a password, I can just hit enter. Okay, so at this point, what I need to do is create the database. So I'm just going to run create database and call it OJS, which is that name right here, and then a semicolon, enter, and we can do show databases. Whoops, forgot the semicolon. You'll see the OJS is here. So now what we need to do is make a user for this database, and we need to assign that user a password, which will have to be password because that's what we put in here. So let's see if I can do this off the top of my head. We want to run grant all privileges on the name of the database, so OJS dot asterisk. So what they're saying is grant all privileges on the OJS database in all of its tables. 2, we want to put in our user now, so OJS underscore user, which is the name we have here, and then another single quote at, let's make this bigger, at localhost. So our database server lives on the same server, so we can call it localhost. And then we want to run identified by password. So our password in this case is password. And if I go ahead and hit enter, let's close that. Okay. And let's see here. So for good measure, let's run flush privileges. We can, let's not exit out of there yet. Let's just make sure everything's good. So now we should be able to install OpenJournal Systems. Okay, after a few seconds, we get this installation has completed successfully. So at this point, we're ready to log in. Let's just make sure our user credentials work. And I think I called it system admin, and put in a password. And at this point, we have our system up and running. And of course, this is now all about the UI of the system, which I haven't explored. I tend to really stick more to the back end of these sorts of things. So at this point, you'll need to click around and explore and figure out how this is going to work best for your institution or for your purposes. So I hope you found this tutorial insightful. If you run into issues as you're installing this, please leave a comment below. You can also email me at jkellogg@eou.edu. Happy to talk about free Libre and open sourced softwares with other folks, particularly within the context of library services. If you're interested in learning about how to build these sorts of systems or learning more about how to build these systems, certainly subscribe to my channel. I do try to focus particularly on things that might be helpful to libraries. However, I am also happy to kind of look at things within the IT world too. In any case, thanks for watching, and I will see you in another video.